Hi guys, in this tutorial we're going to continue looking at what we started in the last tutorial, which is grouping functions or aggregate functions. Okay, and if you recall, I was telling you in the last tutorial that is difficult to create a useful report um, using grouping function without combining with um, a very important concept or a very important keyword or syntax in SQL. Okay, so what we are going to look at in this tutorial is group by. Okay, and here's my point. In the last tutorial, we were looking at different ways of using grouping or aggregate functions. So we talked about average, we talked about sum, count, max, and mean. Okay, those are the basic aggregate functions that we have. Okay, but to see the flexibility of these functions, to see how powerful these functions can be, we need to combine that function with group by. Okay, you won't be able to do much with those functions without combining them in your query with this group by um, clause. Okay, this is not a function because if you remember, so far we've talked about what select is. We talked about from. So select is where you put the columns you want to see, you want to retrieve. And if you want to see all the columns, you say select star. And from is to indicate where you are selecting your data from. You're selecting from a table, you need to specify the name of the table, right? And we also looked at where that anytime I need to add a condition to my query, I need to use this keyword where. So, like I say, where department equals sports, or where department equals clothing, or where department equals tools, and and on like that. So I also showed you order by. Okay, so if I want to order my results in a descending order or an ascending order, I can use this keyword order by. So today in this tutorial, I want to do a gentle introduction to another keyword, which is group by. Okay, so group by is usually combined with, I'm going to remove all this since the focus, this is just like a refresher. The focus is actually group by, an introduction into what group by is, how to use it. So I'm going to get rid of all of that. So group by is used in conjunction with aggregate functions. Now, sometimes you use group by without aggregate functions, but most of the time, if you're going to have a useful report, most of the times, the requirement you're going to get, the business requirement you're going to get from your manager or from the executives to develop a particular report would kind of necessitate the use of group by together with um, an aggregate functions or a grouping function. Okay, so what exactly is this group by clause? To introduce this to you, we're going to be looking at a different table today. Up to this point, we've been looking at employees table, but to introduce this group by to you, I'm going to use another table called cars. Okay, I have a table in this database called cars table. Okay, so we're going to be selecting from this table. And let me show you what I have in this table. So I'm going to say select star from cars. So when I run this, I have 10 records, 10 rows in this table. Okay, and the table only has one column. The name of the column is make. So we only have one column, and inside this one column we have 10 rows. Okay, that's all we have. I decided to use this table because we don't have a large data set in this. So it's going to be easier for me to explain this concept to you. So now you see that I want you to pay close attention to what we have in this table. Now we have 10 records or 10 rows. The first one is under. The second one is under. The third one is under. Then the fourth one is Toyota. The fifth one is Toyota. And the sixth one is Nissan. These are different makes of car, right? And in the seventh row, we have null is empty. In the eighth row, we have null is empty. There's nothing there. There's no make. It's just empty. There's no data. Okay. Null means empty, nothing. And in the 10th row is null. Okay. Okay. But looking at this from the very first row, you see we have under repeated three times. Okay. So that means out of all the records, out of all the makes that we have in this table, we have three cars that are under, and we have two that are Toyota. We have one Nissan, and the rest, the remaining four records are empty, no make. Okay, just empty. Now, how do I group this so that I can have under three, because how many occurrence of under do we have? One, two, three. So how do I come up with a report that says under? Then you have three in front of it. It says Toyota. Then you have two in front of Toyota. And it comes to Nissan. We only have one occurrence of Nissan. So we have under make, we have Nissan. And under the counts of Nissan, we have one because it occurs only once. And then for 7, 8, 9, and 10 is going to say null. Then we're going to have 4. Okay. How do we do that? And that is where group by is useful. Okay. Now, if I want to count, if I want, I can do select star from cars, which gives us what we have on the screen. Another way to do that is the only column I have is make. So I can also say select make from cars. Okay, let me get rid of what I have here. So we only have the query. So I can say select make from cars because we only have one column. So it's the same thing as I'm selecting star. It's just one column. So if I say select make from cars and I run, we still have the same output. 10 rows affected. So we still have the same output. How do I count this? So in the last tutorial, I showed you how to use count function. We look at count. So if I want to count the number of records in this table, all I need to do is to say, and let me do a quick refresher before I use the group by. So I'm going to say select count all from cars. That is, I want to know the number of records or the number of rows that I have in this table. So I can say select count all from cars 10. So we have 10 rows or 10 records in this table. Okay, fine. Let me go back to select make. So select make from cars because that's the only column we have. So select make, we have this. But what we want to achieve is we want a situation where we'll have two columns. This first column is going to count this and say one, two. We're going to say one, two, three. We'll count all the under, and then it's going to make it one group and say under group. How many do we have? Then another column will say we have three. It's going to count the Toyota and say one, two. So okay, Toyota group. How many do we have? We have two. It's going to come to Nissan and say Nissan group. How many occurrences of Nissan do we have? We have just one. And then it's going to put it here. It's going to keep going, and then null is going to count the number of occurrences of null, four occurrences of null. So it's going to say null group we have four. The way to do that is to say select make, which is the only column that we have. Select make, and then count the number of make. So count all the records, count all from cars, so that we can have under. The number of under will be 3. We can have Toyota. The number of Toyota will be 2. So if I run this, let's see what we have. Of course, this is going to throw error. And this is deliberate just to buttress my point. So let's run this. Now we have this error. It says line 1, make count. It says make must appear in the group by clause or to be used in an aggregate function. So what it means is that if you want me to display different makes that we have and the one another column that shows the count of each make, then you need to group your query. So what you need to do is to say group by. Anytime you are using an aggregate function, it means that you are expecting an aggregate column in your report. You need to group that query by a non-aggregate column. What do I mean? Make in this case is a non-aggregate column. Make is a non-aggregate column. But count or count star is an aggregate column. So anytime you want a count of something, a sum of something, and you want to group it, you need to put the non-aggregate column in your group by and say, okay, select make, the make column, count all the records, group by make. I'm going to come here and say group by make. Let's run this. Now we have it. Now you see make, we have the first group null. How many rows are null? 4. This is the counts. How many occurrences of Nissan do we have? Just 1. How many occurrences of Toyota do we have? Just 2. How many occurrences of Honda do we have? Just 3. So this is how to use group by. You can see how powerful, from here you begin to appreciate how powerful this SQL in general is. You see what we just came up with, analyzing that table, and we are able to come up with this summary statistics. So this is just a gentle introduction to group by. In the next tutorial, we're going to dive in deeper into this concept of aggregate functions and group by. They go hand in hand. You you'll be seeing situations, a lot of situations where you have to use aggregate functions combined with group by so that your report can make sense. Okay, so to recap, group by most of the time, for the most part, is used in combination with an aggregate function for reporting purpose. And what we just did was to look at the 10 rows that we have and group them. So we have 10 different categories or 10 different groups. and we want to know the number of each group or the count of each group. So we say select make, count all the records from cars, group them by make. That's what we just did. So we're going to appreciate this more in the next tutorial when we start using applying this aggregate function together with group by for analysis on the employees table. In employees table, we have 1000 records, and so we can play around with this function and group by. Okay, so if this is confusing at this point, maybe yes is okay because this is not a basic concept in SQL. You can see group by and aggregate function as an intermediate concept, so it requires a lot of practice. So you might need to watch this tutorial video more than once. As a matter of fact, more than twice, especially when you are new to SQL, you don't have prior experience, you know nothing about SQL. Okay, so watch this over and over again. It will make sense to you. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.